Hello? All right, I think I'm live. I think that everyone can hear me. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what was going on today with my technology on. So thank you guys for bearing with me, being patient. You can tell it's Monday. If nothing else, you can definitely tell it's Monday. So thank you guys so much for checking in, making sure that everything's okay, making sure that we're on track. But we're going to go ahead. Like I said, I do apologize. This will not happen again. Um, for joining me again. I hope you are having a wonderful week. I hope you had a wonderful last week. And today, what we will be talking about is a little bit about resume building. Okay, so this week is all about resume building, building your resume, and things of that nature. So today we will be talking about how a resume really is your first impression when applying for a job. Okay, so if you have any questions, please save them to the end. You can feel free to chat on here and everything like that. So I will be able to see the questions. But yes, in, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that way we can go ahead and get started. 1 second here. Is being shared. Whew, hopefully my technology works okay. Are you working? Are you not? Working. Okay. There we go. All right, guys. So we are in week 4 this week. Week 4 is all about marketing your first impression. Okay. So last week you did have an opportunity to research industries. You had an opportunity to also complete a skills assessment as well as a accountability log. All right. So I would like your I know that as we've been moving through the weeks, I've kind of assignments throughout the week. Sometimes, it's 2, sometimes it's 3, as well as, the one-on-one sessions and the journals. So I know it can be a lot, and I want to make sure that as we're continuing to move through the week, since we're already halfway through, that, I want to get some feedback from you guys about, how you're liking it so far. Are you able to keep up with the work? Is the work too much? Do you have any questions? Things of that nature, because I do want to ensure that you are successful, as successful as possible in this course. So I would like your feedback. Right. So like I said, today we are talking all about resume building. And I want to start with, I keep talking about, a resume is your first impression and things like that. So I really want to go a little bit more into that and give you some more meaning to what I mean by a resume is your first impression. Okay, so as many of you know, a first impression is the initial impact and influence that you have over somebody else to be able to grab their attention. So think about when you first meet someone, or you meet someone in the store, or maybe even if you go to a networking event. When you meet certain people, that is their first chance to grab your attention. So maybe they do it in a way that attracts you, and maybe they do something that doesn't attract you. But no matter what happens, whatever happens in those first few seconds of you meeting each other, they are trying to grab your attention, and whatever they do is going to be memorable, and you're going to have an idea of that person based on those first couple of seconds. And so typically people are able to form a mental image of you, like I said, after your first encounter, and be remembered in the right way. So some studies show that people can learn a lot about a person within the first few seconds. And other studies show that first impressions cannot be trusted because they're relying on limited information. But regardless, think about how you think about first impressions. Think about when you meet someone, what stands out about them, and how long it takes you to form a judgment or form an idea about somebody else. And typically it's going to be within the first few seconds. So regardless, people tend to rely on you. So you want to make your first impression count. However, impressions have to be in person, which is why you always have to be on point in every aspect of your life, because you never know who you will encounter. Resumes are a great example of first impressions. They are the most common way that people apply for jobs. This documentation of resume concisely showcases who you are. Okay, hiring managers and recruiters are able to look through resumes and they're able to identify candidates that attract. Okay, again, going back to their first impression, they wean out the resumes that immediately attract their attention. And I know this firsthand because, again, as many of you know, I have the experience of being on the employer standpoint. So I know firsthand that when I see resumes that are good and ones that are bad, I, immediately separate those. And the ones that are good, of course, they have caught my attention. And we'll talk about that later, about those attention grabbers and things like that. But they caught my attention, so I kept them. All right. So typically you have one chance to market your skill to employers. All right. One chance. And once you understand the strategies of how to build a resume, you will find yourself being able to capture the attention of more employers. All right. So she's to make your resume pop. So we always want to make our resume pop. We want to be noticeable. We want people noticing our resumes and everything like that. So you definitely want to make sure making your resume pop. So today what we're going to be talking about is understanding the concept of tailoring your resume. Objective statements, executive summaries, education/certifications, awards, experience, and skills. All right. So you're going to hear it again tonight because it's very important, is when you're applying for jobs, people, when you're applying to get new clients, whatever the case may be, you have to tailor it. All right. Long gone is that era when you could, just submit that one resume. Woo, that was nice, right? That one resume to a lot of different employers. Anymore. Now with the advance in technology and just with our economy growing and more people looking for jobs and things of that nature, it's very important that you tailor your resume because employers are looking for qualified candidates. If you submit that one size fits all resumes to every employer, you may to hit every now and then, but you're going to have to put in a lot more work because there's going to be a lot of employers who are going to reject your resume because it's not going to be tailored to their job description. So it's better just to put in the work beforehand rather than just taking a lazy way out and say, well, I don't feel like looking over my resume. Here you go. If you're just going to send out an untailored resume, it's really a waste of time. You really could use your time more wisely. You could cook, you could walk the dog, you could do whatever. But doing that, to be honest, is a waste of time, just sending out that one size fits all resume. So you really have to showcase your skills and your experiences to stand out. If you do, I'm just going to try to continue sending this one size fits all resume, is going to be placed in the no pile. I've done it lots of times. I mean, you have to, when you're an employer, you're going to have resumes that are good. You're going to have resumes that are not so good. And at the end of the day, they have to make a decision. They have to make a decision. So some resumes, of course, are going to go in the no pile. So you want to ask yourself questions. While you're tailoring your resume, you want to be thinking, do you have the experience to do X job while you're interested in the position? And yes, it does take time, but you do not have time to wait. Okay, so it does take time to tailor your resume, but like I said, it's going to save you in the long run of having to just kind of recreate the wheel and being stressed out and things like that. Companies. We're going to continue talking about this throughout the night, but many companies use what's called an applicant tracking system, also known as the ATS system. So your resume will be searched by certain keywords that are relevant to the position, which is why it's so important to tailor your resume. Okay, if you send that one size fits all resume, it's immediately going to be weaned out. Okay, think about when you have applied for, some job positions. They take like a long time to apply. Sometimes you really have to. It takes a long time for you to apply for a job, right? So if your resume lacks relatable experience, it will be overlooked. So you want to make sure that you are including skills and talents that relate to the job description, and you must tailor your resume every time you apply for a new position, because again, many of these companies are using that ATS tracking system, and when they search by those keywords, for instance, if they're looking for let's say an admissions counselor, and they're looking for an admissions counselor who has worked at and they're looking for someone with recruiting and sales experience, someone who's had experience working with students, someone who is a good multitasker, someone who is able to negotiate, someone who has experience going to job fairs and going to different schools to recruit students and things like that. Those are some, or even people who have like great customer service skills and experience with, speaking to maybe at least like 50 to 70 people a day. These are all different characteristics of admissions counselors, people who love to travel, all these things. So let's say, all of that being said, there's a lot of different skills, within that. And let's say you don't showcase any of those skills on there, you don't show that you have any skills needed to be an admissions counselor, like good customer service skills, recruiting, being able to multitask, being able to mentor and even counsel students, things of that nature. If you don't showcase any of those skills and it's a requirement of the job, they're going to overlook your resume, because they're not going to have any reason to give you a chance if you're showing them that you really don't have the required skills to bring to the job. Okay, so an objective. Now, this is kind of tricky because what I would say about an objective is people go back and forth about this. Okay, so you will hear some people say, you really do need an objective, and then you will hear some people say like, oh no, you don't need it. Well, I'm on the side of you don't need it, and I'm going to explain to you why you do not need an objective statement. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, maybe you're not currently using it in your resume. It's basically statements saying things as, like you're seeking X position with Y company to develop your A, B, and C skills. So if you were seeking a admissions counselor position, you would say, seeking a position as an admissions counselor with such and such company so I can develop my recruiting, sales, and marketing skills, things such as that nature, which is not a bad statement. What I just said is not a bad statement. It's very, coherent, concise, and to get straight to the point, right? Well, to be honest, objective statements are filler information. If I'm already applying for an admissions counselor position, and if I have tailored my resume to that position to showcase that I do have the experience in being an admissions counselor, and that I have, and that this is what I'm applying for, then there's no reason for me to have an objective statement. Okay, the employer clearly sees that I've already submitted an application for this position. There's no reason for me to put that information in my resume. It's just filler information. Many times is overlooked. I know me, for one, I overlook this information because if they're applying for a position that's already known that I'm seeking a person for, there's no reason for me to wonder, oh, what type of job are they seeking? Now in some instances, it does come in handy, if you're a lot of different positions within that company, and it's all going to the same person, then that's the difference, because then you do want to make clear what type of position you're applying for. But those cases are typically rare, and typically people are usually applying for like one position. And so you want to make sure that, it's as concise and understandable as possible. And again, objective statements are really filler information and it's not needed. Okay. Now, what you can use, because you're probably wondering, well, I usually put that at the top. What can I put now? You can put what's called an executive summary or a professional summary. They're basically like the same thing. They're basically summaries that are explaining your experience in a nutshell. Instead of using an objective, you can use an executive summary or a professional summary, because this actually goes over your experience. Sometimes employers only have a few seconds to look at your resume. Few seconds to look at your resume. They don't have a lot of time to sit there flipping through the pages, analyzing what you said. They're looking for what they want to see, and if they don't see it, they move right along. And so you have, like I said, just a little bit of time to impress them. So by putting a strong professional summary at the top, showcasing your experience, that relates to the job experience, that relates to the job description, definitely will catch an employer's eye. I did a resume for someone a little while back who was a personal trainer, and this is the professional summary that I use for them. Okay, I started out with a strong statement, and as you see, I also started off with a metric. And I did that because a lot of times employers, instead of just saying, a lot of people will say, oh, I have the experience, I have the skills. I heard that a lot. I heard that a lot, with working in admissions, recruiting, and human resources. Oh, I have the experience, I have the skills, but the question that follows up with that is how much? How much experience do you have? And that's what employers really want to know, is how much. If you say you have a couple months, depending on the position, you may be able to get called in for, an interview. But when you start talking years and years of experience, that really catches employers' eye when they're talking about finding like viable and strong candidates. So, this person, they had 5 years of experience, working in the personal trainer realm, which is really good, because as soon as the employer sees their professional summary, they're going to see that metric. Okay, they're going to see, oh wow, okay, they have 5 years of experience. Okay, let me keep reading. What else do they have? It makes them want to know more, instead of just saying personal training position with this company so I can develop these skills. That's excellent that you want to develop skills, but they want to know what you already have and what you plan to bring to that company and how you relate. They want to make sure you're going to be a good fit. All right, so education is another important section that is on your resume. Okay, so this section is needed because employers want to know the types of education you received. Okay, the education basically meets the basic requirements for most positions. I'm not going to say all, because in some positions, having the amount of education is more important than the experience. Okay, and so typically when you have a job description at the end, it's going to tell you the main requirements, and always in the main requirements you're going to find the education, whether that's an associate's degree or a high school diploma, a bachelor's degree, master's, and so on. Okay, sometimes you'll see bachelor's degree required, master's degree preferred. This means that they prefer someone with the master's. You have earned your master's degree, you're in a good standing, because they're going to be more likely to take your resume into account if you have that. Now, that's not always the case. A bachelor's degree with a lot of experience, and you have a lot more experience than someone with a master's degree, then your resume will be taken into experience. But at least if you have at least a bachelor's, you can still feel comfortable with applying. Meaning the basic requirement. Now, like I said, with some companies, they focus more heavily on the education, and this is important for the placement of where you're going to put the education at, right? So sometimes when you're just applying for a regular position and the experience is more key, I always like to tell people that you want to place the education section after your experience. Okay, so the experience is one of the first things that the employer sees. So by the time they get to your education section, that just confirms, okay, good, and they have this master's degree as well, which is a requirement of this position. However, let's say the education is a major part of the position. Let's say they're requiring, candidates to have, multiple degrees and a lot of different certifications, right? Because some positions do require that. Then you want to put your education up at the front, meaning after that professional statement, you want to follow that with your education. So again, that's one of the first things that the employer sees, so they don't have to wean through your resume to figure this out. Okay, again, they only have a few seconds to look at your resume, so you don't want to wait until your resume to showcase your education, especially if that's a catcher, if you have all the requirements, you want to showcase it at the beginning. Okay, the more things that you have that relate to the job description, the more they're going to want to read into your resume, and they're going to be like, oh great, he has this certification, oh and this experience, oh excellent. And the more likely then you're going to be able to be put into the S pile. Okay, all right, same thing with certifications. These are another great asset with your resume. They can go into the same section basically as your education, and they showcase your knowledge in certain fields. However, you want to make sure that you are incorporating relevant certifications. If you're applying for a human resources position and a year ago you got a certification in as a beautician, okay, unless you can show the direct correlation, maybe, you will say, maybe the human resources job is, heavy on customer service. Maybe you have to be on the phone constantly. And maybe you did, working as a beautician, maybe of course, you do customer service too. It needs to just relate. The employer doesn't need to be able to second guess, like, okay, I see there's this beautician certification on your resume, but how does that relate? Because typically for, a human resources position, they're going to want to see that you have a bachelor's degree or a master's, or I'm sorry, a bachelor's degree like in business, probably with a concentration in human resources, or a master's, or certifications, like PHR or something like that, that showcases that you have the knowledge as well as the skills to be able to do the position. So, external, certifications that really don't correlate are not always going to be the best thing for your resume, because again, you don't want to throw the employer off and then they're looking like, what does this have to do? Okay, now some certifications, it makes sense, they can definitely relate, but if they're going to have to think too hard, they're most likely just going to move it to the side. All right. Awards are definitely a thing that you want to create. If you have gotten some awards, include them on your resume. They provide evidence of your qualifications. And they show that your work has been highly recognized. All right. And it makes the employer feel more comfortable with your experience. You want to definitely avoid, though, using vague statements such as, like, if you got an award for your grades or something in college, you want to avoid something such as college graduate with phenomenal grades. You want to use college graduate who consistently named on the dean's list and chancellor's list for 8 semesters. And that's only if you choose to use those long statements. But to be honest, you could just showcase something probably smaller, and that could be, to be honest, probably showcased under your education section, just dean's and chancellor's list, if you choose. And typically people who do that are, possibly maybe just out of college and they're trying to find a job or something to be able to showcase, that they did a good job in college. But no vague statements. Okay. All right, your experience. I've been talking about this all night long. All right, so this section is used to verify that your work history matches the company, the position, the mission, and the goals. Okay, are you qualified for the open position? And showcase this information in the most relevant way. For experience relevant. Okay, what if your last relevant work experience was years ago? Okay, want to make sure you were just your resume as relatable as possible, and your experience as relatable as possible. And one is by using keywords. Using keywords and understanding keywords. Every time you get a job description, the job description is going to give you a synopsis of course, what the job is, what your duties will be, and what the requirements are. Okay, and typically like deadlines and stuff like that. You want to go back to that duty section and start picking out keywords. I gave you the example earlier of, like, if you're applying for an admissions counselor job and they're looking for people with X, Y, and Z. Someone who has great customer service skills, someone who is a good multitasker, someone who is good working with parents, someone who has worked with students, someone who is good with working with vocational schools, someone who has held job fairs, someone who doesn't mind traveling, someone who has recruiting, sales, and marketing experience. All these different things, right, will be combined into a job description in the duty section. What you want to do is pick out the keywords from that. Okay, so recruiting, sales, marketing, job fairs, travel, students, and you want to include like the age, and even like vocational schools. Okay, so you want to include and be able to showcase to the employer on your resume that you are a good candidate for the position. Able to show that by using those keywords. Because again, if this is an employer that uses an applicant tracking system and you don't have those words on there, your resume is going to be weaned out. It just is. It's going to be weaned out immediately because they, again, want to see that you are relevant, that your experience is relevant for the job and that you would make a good fit. If you are able to show that and if you actually have that experience, but again, this is the reason why with your experience and with even applying for the job, you want to look more into the job. You don't want to just be applying. And we talked about this last week. You don't want to just be applying to any old job. The jobs you're applying for are jobs that you actually have an interest in, you can see yourself in, you want to have done some research and some really deep thinking on why this job would be a good fit for you. Okay. Oh, I need a job, and you're applying for like 50 different jobs that are, none of them are related to each other. You know, you're gonna land something definitely, but is it gonna be something you like? Is it gonna be something you enjoy? You wanna always be thinking about these things. And as far as, you know, relating your experience to the job description, I will show you an example a little bit later on how to do that. Formatting and location of the experience section. So I always tell people that, you know, this section, it shouldn't be too wordy. You know, sometimes we get in the habit of, you know, writing sentences on sentences about our job duties at these different positions, and we get really, really happy. Right. That's great. But again, I have a lot of time to look over your resume, so they're not going to be reading long, long sentences. You want to put something in bullet format. And again, your bullets need to be related to the job description. Okay, there's going to be certain duties that you did at your previous job that does not relate to some of the jobs you're going to be applying for. So you don't need to include that information. They come out later if you're able to land the job or whatever, or maybe it will come out in your interview if you're asked, great. But for your resume, for this being your first impression, that information does not need to be included. The bullets you need to include are the ones that need to be related to the position, okay? Ones that should be related to the position based on the job duties section, okay? You want to use action words that will attract an employer's attention. You want to avoid repetition. And what I mean by that is sometimes we'll get in the habit of using the word used or the word conducted or the word accomplished or the word completed a lot, right? We'll use these action words over and over again. And you don't want to have 5 bullets with the word completed for each bullet, okay? Or, you know, conducted or worked or whatever it may be. You don't want to keep using that same word. You want to switch it up. Typically, I say don't exceed 5 bullets. Now, if you know that you had a huge role, and you know that a lot of your experience relates to this, you know, you can maybe go a little bit more, maybe do like 6 or something. But when you start getting at 7, 8, 9, that's just too much. Employers do not have time, again, to read all of that. Your resume needs to be as concise and clear as possible. And when it starts getting super, super long like that, they're just going to start skimming over. And to be honest, they're only going to be looking at your first couple bullets. Only going to be looking at your first couple bullets. So those first couple bullets need to be amazing, especially that first one, because that first one is the one they're going to be going to first. So once you start thinking like, oh, I put, you know, I'll just, you know, mix it up, and, you know, no, your strongest points, your most relatable duties needs to be the first one. All right. So your experience section, as I talked about earlier, should be under, if you're doing, you know, again, if this is just a regular position, it should go something like, you know, your professional summary or your executive summary, your skills section, and then your experience. Okay, so it can go under your skills section. So skills, I put this last because typically people tend to forget this section, and this section is very, very important, and there's a lot that goes with it. I don't know why people tend to not put a skill section in their resume, but it's very important, because if you do not put a skill section in your resume, then your employer is only going to be going off of your experience section to go by. They're not going to have your skills or anything. They're only going to have your experience section. If your experience section is not that strong, the likelihood of you being put into a yes pal is very, very slim. All right. You know, these are really just practical, real world things that you have learned and that you know how to do. That's basically what a skill is. You want to stay away, though, from using overarching or vague skills like, oh, I'm a great organizer, I'm an excellent communicator, you know, and break all of that, you know, I'm a social media expert, I'm a project manager. What I mean by simplify those, break them down, is what do you mean by you're a great organizer? You know, how do you organize your time? Are you, you know, you have great time management? You know, that's a way of being organized, that you manage your time. That's breaking it down. Excellent communicator, who do you communicate with? Maybe at your previous position, you maybe you communicated a lot with third-party vendors. Okay, and maybe that's a key skill that you'll need to have for your upcoming position or the upcoming position that you're applying for. Social media expert. What social media sites have you worked on? Have you worked on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest? Which ones? And how much of an expert are you with them? 15 years of experience. You put a number with that. Project manager. What type of project managing have you done? Okay, so you want to break those down, because skills and these things all the time. Okay, I'm a great organizer, I'm a great communicator. You know, what do you mean? Break it down. Make yourself more attractable than a lot of other people who are going to use these vague skills. Okay, you want to show and prove. So like I said, break those skills down. These examples are able to give your employer a deeper understanding of what you can do. All right. For instance, if you say you are an expert with HR systems, and you're able to find and you are able to cite a few systems that you have experience with, this will make the employer actually feel more comfortable with your knowledge, rather than just saying your knowledge of HR systems or something. You know, if you're able to say you have experience with Kronos or EENav or things such as that nature, it's going to make the employer like, oh, wow, like we use that system too, or, oh yeah, I'm familiar with that system. They're going to know that you know what you're talking about, because you were actually able to name something that was related to, okay, rather than just saying that you are an HR systems expert or something like that. And people think that it sounds good, but it's not saying a lot. So that's why I'm saying break it down and, you know, just pull it out, because when you break it down and you make it as simple as possible for the employer to understand, you're more likely to get their attention, rather than saying, you know, an overarching vague statement that you think sounds good, because it's not always about sounding good. Again, they're trying to find people who relate to them, who are a good fit, who have the skills that they're looking for. All right, so formatting your whole resume. All right, so in terms of fonts and colors, your name, address, phone number, references, all this stuff. As far as your font, simple. Keep it around. Don't go too crazy with all like the different types. You know, I typically, when doing people's resume, I stick to Times New Roman. I may use Georgia or something, but that's rare. Typically, it's Times New Roman. When you start thinking about fonts and size, you want to start thinking in the terms of professionalism. Your size is super huge, 14, 16, 18. Your resume is supposed to be very, very concise. Okay, you start using those big fonts, your resume is going to end up being like 3-4 pages. I'm going to read all that. At 12, I know sometimes if you have a lot to include, people may go down to 11. You don't want to go smaller than 11. 12 is definitely should be if you have to do 11, okay, but no smaller than 11. Color, and then we want to express our personalities, and we like the pinks and the lime greens and the yellows and everything like that. But with, again, professional. If you have like a navy blue or something like that, that's fine. That's understandable. A lot of resumes are in like navy blue or something like that, but baby blue and, you know, bright blue and all this kind of stuff like that, you know, I would stick between, you know, like a darker blue or black. Okay, you can even go back to, you know, schools. Like, you know, when you're applying for a job with Penn, or when you're in school, maybe even taking a test, they always tell you to write in what colors. Blue pen, right? Black or blue pen. Why? Because that's the most professional looking, okay? Red and all these things like that is going to throw people off. So black, a dark blue are definitely the most professional ones. All right. Your name and address and phone number, those should be at the top of the page. I don't know how many resumes I have received that do not have a phone number on them. And it's really disheartening when you receive a resume that's really, really good and it doesn't have the most simplest thing as phone number. Okay. Employers cannot get in contact with you if you do not have a phone number on your resume. Them that you don't really care about the job, that you don't really want the job. Okay, these are things that you have to be checking over. It can be a minor mistake, but it can cost you a lot if you're not doing what you need, if you don't look over it, because they don't have a way to get in contact with you. They don't know you. Phone number. You don't need that unless they tell you. Sometimes employers will say include references at, you know, the back of your resume or something like that. But in most cases, you don't need it. And that vague statement, references including upon request, take that out. It's not needed. If they really, really want your references, they will let you know. So you don't need it at all. Another thing I'm going to say about formatting is sometimes I know people will use, you know, the format templates. You know, sometimes Word will have the format templates, or you'll get one offline that looks really, really nice. And what you'll do is you'll just input information. Okay. I've tried it as well, and they look really nice depending on which ones you get. The thing about using these, and the thing about, you know, using these and, you know, thinking about an applicant tracking system is that sometimes when using those templates, the format can get messed up. Let's say you get a template offline and it looks really nice and you input all your information into it and you upload it into the system. You know, you think you're done. Well, on your end, and from what your computer said, is that it uploaded successfully. Okay. But what could have really happened on the other end, because I've seen it, is that when it uploaded, around your information in a format that is not neat, concise, or any way that you put it in there. They look to the employer like a jumbled resume where the words are on top of each other. They're just like in a vertical line. It doesn't look appealing at all. Okay. So that's why sometimes I tell people, you know, if it's, you know, a simple template that you get out of Word, that's fine, but you still want to be wary, because not all the time are these formats going to transfer over in the best way. Okay. Even sometimes when you line and they tell you to upload your resume, and then at the bottom of that it will say, you know, parse your resume so that information from your resume can automatically be put into the application. Even in those scenarios, they'll show you what your resume looks like. You will have to go back in there and change around the format, because the way you see it on the screen is the way the employer is going to see it. Okay, so all these things you just want to take into account. I understand sometimes we want to showcase our personality. We want the best looking resume. I get that. Okay, you can make a resume on your own and it can still be good looking. I'm not saying don't use templates, because there's a lot of great templates out there that are there to help you. But you want to be mindful of, when sometimes getting a lot of these different templates offline, of how it could possibly look in an applicant tracking system. While it may look great on your computer, it may transfer horribly into an employer system. I've seen it, and it's unfortunate, but sometimes your resume will just be overlooked because of that. So again, take that into account. So with all that being said, you be doing some resume exercises this week. All right. So part of your assignment this year is you're going to use 2 job descriptions that are within your industry. Okay. So now you see how all the weeks are going to be forming together. Last week we talked about industries. The week before that we talked about finding your passion and action planning. So by this, you may have or should have some type of industries in mind. Okay. You're going to be using that information from the previous weeks for this week, because you're using 2 job descriptions within your industry, and you're going to find keywords in those job descriptions and that can be used on your resume. Okay, and the system you're going to be able to use to be able to point out those keywords is called worditout.com. I don't know if you've heard Worditout, but basically it is a word cloud system that basically is able to extract keywords from documents. So I'm going to go over a quick little exercise with you. So I've been talking about admissions counselors and things like that all night, right? So for me, I will be looking in, let's say, possibly the education sector or the sales sector, right? So, and I love working one-on-one with people and counseling and consulting. So, you know, that will possibly be another area as well. So I pick admissions counselor, all right? So I find this job description right here for an admissions representative in Miller Mock College. So it goes over all the information, all right? Then I find another one, an admissions officer position with Duke University, okay? Do is, okay, I'm looking over this information, I'm trying to find the keywords. It may not be coming to me as much as I want it to. So what do I do? I paste both of the job descriptions and I paste them, and this is what Worditout looks like. I paste them and Worditout, okay, in this section. I'm pasting them Worditout. Then what I do after I paste them and Worditout is I'm gonna hit the generate button in green. After you hit the generate button, what's going to populate is it's going to be this big screen here, okay, of all the potential keywords that you could find in here, okay? Now, this isn't going to tell you everything, because even with looking at that job description, I'm looking here and I see a couple ones that aren't pointed out. For instance, in the Duke University, when they mentioned about social media and having experience with posting on like Facebook and Instagram and things like that, marketing, basically, you know. So market in here. So they do have market in here. So that is some of the things you can think about. But this basically helps you get started. Okay, you see recruiting, you see again market, you see relationships. So building relationships with possibly other schools, or you know, with students, with parents, creating job fairs to get more exposure to the program and things like that. Degree, it talks about, you know, enrollment, motivation, because you are going to be motivating these students and things like that. So these are just the now some of these aren't going to apply. You're not going to use these. Some of these are just self-explanatory. For instance, like interviews, that one's good. But like school, that physical, that's up there, you don't need that. Calls, you know, all these different, like some of these are just vague words, so not all of these are going to be used, but this helps you get an idea of the keywords that are used in there and how they relate to the position, because these are words that you can use in your skills and your experience section to be able to stand out. Still a process. I know I've given you a lot of information tonight, but this is still a process. It's not, you still got to know, again, the formatting, you know, it's going to take a little bit of practice as you get into it, but with having the knowledge, it helps, because once you're able to do it 1 or 2 times, you know, it gets easier. Okay. All right, so this week's assignment, so I just showed you one of what you're going to be doing. You're going to be picking out 2 job descriptions, and you're going to be finding the keyword. You're also going to be completing a would you interview this person exercise. Okay, so based on someone's resume, you're going to make the decision as if you would hire that person, and you're going to give your critique on why or why not you would hire that person based on the information that I've given you tonight and based on just your own judgment. Okay, and as well as you will be updating your own resume. Okay. Okay, I think I'm coming back on. All right. All right, I see Jennifer, she posted a question. All right, what do you do when you not have a degree or you're currently between them? Okay, so what do you do when you do not have a degree? okay, or doing a degree. Well, if you're currently pursuing a degree and you're currently at a school, then you definitely want to go ahead and make sure that you put that information on your resume under your education section. You can put on there, pursuing, or, you can put on there the date that you started up until the date now, or you can just put present, as long as they see that you're doing something. Now, I'm not going to say that just because, a job description always says bachelor's degree, you don't have any chance of getting the position, because many times people find that they obtain a position by just having having the experience. Okay, so basically by just having the experience. So what you want to do is, in those situations, is you want to try as possible. Okay, you want to try as much as possible to put as much as your experience down. Okay, if this is a position where they are requiring people to have a lot of experience, you want to show that it's definitely relatable. If they're looking at people who have, I know when I was recruiting, sometimes a lot of our positions require, for instance, like Sigma belts and green belts and these Black Sigma belts and things like that to find these people. And it got to a point where the education always wasn't as important. We just needed people who had the experience in this area. So if you're able to showcase that you do have the experience in that area, your skill section, your education section, even your professional summary, which is what brings the information, needs to be on point. Typically, your education, again, is going to be at the bottom. So even if you showcase that you don't have that experience, put the have. And in your cover letter, because again, you always want to have a cover letter. I didn't go over that part today. That's something a little bit, even though they do go hand in hand. It's another lecture that if you want me to, I can. But your resume have your cover letter, and in your cover letter, you're going to showcase, of course, why you're a viable candidate for the position, but why basically overshadow education, why you are a viable candidate for the job, why they should pick you because you have X, Y, and Z experience that relates to our position. Okay, because sometimes employers will pick you even if you do not have the education, because they'll find that the people with the education have less experience than you, and they know that that experience is much more important.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll wait for a second just to see if anyone else has any other questions.
So my second question was about the formats and the differences.
Say that one more time.
What are the types of formats and the differences between them?
Yeah, okay, so there's the resumes. I think that's I'm referring to. Okay, so you definitely have your traditional resume. Then you have your functional resume, which is basically for people who are like career changers. So people who are kind of like in your situation, in a sense, people who are going into a field where they don't really have much experience. So they may be wanting to go into, let's say, like higher education, but most of their experience kind of just falls in like administrative, and they don't have a lot of experience working in higher ed, but they want to get into that field. What they're going to have to do is create a resume that showcases their skills in these sectors, okay? And I would have to show you examples of what I mean specifically, but basically a functional resume from the very beginning is picking out various skills. A few weeks ago, is picking out various skills that relate to that position. You have a combinational resume that your traditional experience, so people who are just creating resumes who already have the experience that's related to the position, along with people who are pulling out those specific skills, okay? And specific skills is, in a regular resume, you're gonna have a skills section. You're going to have a skill sections too, but it's done differently because this one is done in a more bulleted format. So in a skills section on a regular resume, you may have, reading experience, you have mentoring and counseling experience, you're a multitasker, you're able to manage your time, and it's in like a bulleted format. On a functional resume, you may have, let's say, administrative experience. And what you'll do under administrative, which is like the title, is you'll have a bulleted, like bulleted points that go into your actual experience working in the administrative field, okay? Especially if that's a huge part of the job that you want to go into. Functional, right, is to show your employer that while you do not have the experience in that field, your skill set that you have gained in other areas relate to that position. The thing about functional resumes are that they have to be done very, very well, because so many employers now, and so many people are, of course, accustomed to those traditional and combinational resumes that showcase, in that format, that when they see a functional resume, sometimes it throws them off. So some employers like them and some employers don't, but they're still very, very important, because skills or experiences that have nothing to do with the position without giving them some type of background history is going to get a no pile. So these functional resumes are definitely a good tool, because again, it showcases and it breaks it down in a way that they can see, okay, experience for like position. And again, that up with the cover letter that goes into more detail is definitely important.
That sounds great.
You got it?
I said that sounds great. Thank you.
Excellent. It was breaking up a little bit, but I heard you say that was great. Good. Other questions? Well, what I will do is I will post this tomorrow when I send out your assignments. I will post this recording so you guys as a refresher for this week's assignments. But if there are no other questions, I will go ahead and log out for tonight. I really hope that you guys got a good amount of information from tonight. I hope that you guys can take this information and definitely use it for this week's assignments, as well as for updating your resume. And of course, as always, if you have all, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Email me. Some of you guys have my phone number, text me, whatever the case may be. I do not mind at all. So please feel free to do that. I know this week will be a little bit of a longer week because you have 3, but I know you guys can tackle it. Also, please do not forget, I would like some feedback. You can just send me an email on how you've been doing so far. How have the assignments benefited you so far? Have they been difficult? Have you been able to keep up with them? If you haven't been able to keep up with them, why? Do you feel like the assignments are a little bit too much? Do you feel like they're a little bit too little? How are you liking the webinars? Just your overall thoughts. And I know sometimes we'll go into the process in the 5-day journal. And I know last Friday I actually journal, and that on purpose. The reason why that was not done was because I have seen that, not been completing all the assignments, and I don't want to overwhelm people too much. I don't want to give you all and that you all have your own lives and that, you're going through a lot of things. So that's why I definitely want on how you're liking the assignment so far, if they're too much, if you want more.
Shanika?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So there's one more question, if you don't mind. Is education really more valuable than experience?
It's a draw. I know I had spoke about this in the beginning of the the experience does provide more value. The education typically meets the basic requirement, meaning that if you find a job description that says a bachelor's degree, but the master's degree is preferred, or just a bachelor's degree, some of them will just say, BA degree or something like that. And so you have that BA degree, because a lot of recent college graduates fall into this category, even master's, even doctoral students. they'll have that education, right? They'll have that, but they'll have no experience. That was only 1 year or a couple months, and maybe that's all they have. That's in relation to that field. And let's say their resume and they didn't really pinpoint, you know, how their experience relates to that field. Most likely, it's going to be hard for them to find a position. Why? One, because they're not tailoring their resume, and two, don't have a lot of experience. Experience is definitely what you have done and what you could potentially bring to that position, which is why I had spoke to you earlier and I said that if you have a lot of experience but you don't have just wean yourself out and say like, no, I can't apply for this job, because the employers will see that you do have experience, especially if you have years and years experience in the industry into account when looking at your resume. Again, you want to start your resume off strong. If you start with a metric, they're going to want to look more into your resume, and your resume is not going to always get automatically placed into the no pile because employers focus on experience. I know when I was working in recruiting and admissions that the experience is very important. I could not bring anybody on that did not have experience. Great that you had the education, it's meeting the basic requirement, but I got to know what you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's it for the question.
Okay, excellent. Well, like I said, guys, if you do any other questions, feel free to email me. Provide me with receive your assignments tomorrow. I don't have anything else, so that was all on my end as well.
Okay, have a good night.
Thank you guys so much for joining in, and again, I apologize about the technical difficulties. All right, bye guys.
All right, bye.